Welcome everybody, my name is 𝐏𝐨𝐲𝐬𝐭, and this is the Market Meditations podcast. We chat with fascinating people from around the world to extract mindsets, routines, stories, and habits to help you build richer lives. Meditators, today we have on the man behind the Crypto Daily YouTube channel. Cameron and I discuss Bitcoin, its future for this year, where we think the entire space is going, how to protect yourself from the inevitable bubble that will form across multiple different asset classes, and even dive into the dark underbellies of the crypto society. Let's go. Before we jump into this episode, don't forget that I send hand-picked market news, insights, and education to over 6,000 traders and investors 3 times a week. To get access to this, all you have to do is sign up to 𝐏𝐨𝐴𝐧.substack.com. And also a quick thanks to our partners UTrust for making this podcast possible. There'll be more on them later. Welcome, meditators, to another episode of the Market Meditations podcast. Today, we've got one of the few channels that I was watching in 2017, the owner of Crypto Daily, on the show. Thank you so much for joining us, Cameron.
An absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you reached out the other day, and it made me really happy because, we were talking about this before the podcast episode began. It was almost weird to hear your voice talk back to me because I've just been so used to seeing you on YouTube, and I love the content you do as well. Taking it a step back to before even the YouTube channel, what got you into crypto in the first place?
So I think back in 2013 or so, I was fortunate enough to speak to a couple wealthy individuals and to really pick their brains about, okay, how do you get rich? So I was much younger back then and maybe naive, but they both told me the same thing, which was a stock market. And so I kept that in the back of my mind. And I want to say 2015, 2016, I had a real job, started to have enough savings to realistically look at investing in something. And the first stock I wanted to invest in was called the competitor to NVIDIA, AMD, because I had learned that they were coming out with new chips and new GPUs and everything. And I looked at the fees. So we didn't have Robinhood back then. And I know Robinhood is a whole nother story right now. But back then it was like, the one of the only places you could get commission-free trading. And when you weren't working with very high net worth positions, like at all, these fees were really crippling. So I didn't invest. And for that year, I saw AMD do like a 10x. It was a crazy year. It was picking up off the crypto hype that was coming, um, selling the GPUs for mining. So I thought, okay, all right, well, the next thing then, I'm not missing out. And and this is going to sound pretty crazy, I was looking at memes on Reddit, and someone on there, I think it was the Reddit CEO, was talking about crypto. And it was the first time I'd heard about it. And so this was early 2017. And I think when did you get into crypto? What year was that?
26, like late 2016 is when I got in.
Okay. Was that the first time you heard about it? Did you get in, or was it later?
Oh, the second I heard about it, I dived deep in. I
Okay.
Reddit was hot. Reddit was hot for a while, like
Yeah.
the place to be. I remember those times, if that's where you're going with this.
Okay, yeah. So I just think it's funny sometimes, people, they wear it as a badge of honor. I've been in Bitcoin since 2011, since 2010. Um, but they're still on social media. They're not living on a private island or something. I give so much credit to those who have learned about it, even this year, and took it seriously the first time they heard about it. Um, but
So Cameron, to clarify that, the reason I was so serious about it the first time I heard about it was because my friend who told me about it was actually had some information about a certain company joining the Ethereum Enterprise Alliance. So it was a very hot, actionable, unique situation to be introduced into the space through.
Nice, nice. I bet Ethereum was a lot cheaper back then, huh?
Yeah, for sure.
Uh, um, yeah, so yeah, I started learning about Bitcoin, and I had grown up and you most likely have similar experiences. The 2008 financial crisis making everything a little bit harder on people in terms of getting jobs, in terms of opportunities, and I looked into it and I learned about what happened, at the time, maybe a few years later, and I just had this distrust of the banking system and the greed of people in power, and Bitcoin was just it blew my mind. I've never been so inspired by anything in my life, almost. I took a week off work straight away, and this is very unlike me, but I spent all day researching and learning about it, from when I got up to when I went to sleep. And then I started a YouTube channel pretty soon after that, not because of, "Oh, I'm gonna make some ad revenue off of these videos." I actually expected it to go absolutely nowhere. I tried YouTube a number of occasions before, like gaming related stuff when I was younger, like compilations of clips, and it was so difficult. So I went in thinking this isn't gonna go anywhere, but I just wanted to share my enthusiasm, my hype, my excitement about what I'd learned about with others because I knew not everyone knows about this.
That's incredible because most people come for the money and then stay for the tech, be that through involuntary bad holding or genuine belief in what they're doing. So I feel there's a couple stages. Once you can either lose money and get attached to the space, or you can make a lot of money from the space, and then you start to believe, you see its use cases, especially now with DeFi and more than ever. It's hard not to believe in this when you can actually tangibly use it and get better services than you would in the real world.
Oh, for sure. You definitely. I also think that crypto is something different for everybody almost. I think broadly speaking, it's come for the money, stay for the tech, but it can definitely be this is someone's ticket to paying off their mortgage or changing something about their life that they need. Someone else is just about preservation. Someone else is about being their own bank because they need to. There's 2 billion people who are unbanked, so it's amazing that it can be applicable to so many people.
So what's it to you now? It started as this is exciting, this changes the banking system, but that was a long time ago. Where are you now?
Do you know, that's a really good question because I have no idea. I guess I'm along for the ride. Um, having said that, I took out a loan. I took out a big loan to buy Bitcoin, which, anyone doing that, anyone listening, that is not a good idea. I was a lot more naive back then. Obviously, with it being early 2017, it paid out. It was a good financial decision, but generally speaking, it's not good advice. But that's what I did. So I went as deep into it as I could, believing in the fact that I could make money off it, but at this point, I I have no idea. I like what this movement is doing in empowering people and removing power from those who, quite frankly, abuse it, the current financial system, which, yeah, we can get more into that with the whole grayscale thing, but, I just wouldn't wanna leave this space, and yeah, I don't know. I'm just along for the ride, I guess I would say.
So what does that mean in terms of why you're here right now? What are your goals in the space? Because you still make content on YouTube. You reached out to me on Twitter, so you're definitely in the space along for the ride. But is it now just for the tech, just to share it with the people? Do you still have monetary goals you're trying to reach from the space? What is the purpose now?
So so, those deep questions, man, and I wish I had the answers. So, I think purpose is something that a lot of us sort of struggle with. I make content on YouTube because I enjoy it, and but it is a fine line where an audience, especially in the crypto space, can be monetized and can be monetized to tremendous benefit personally. Uh, I have a genuine passion for um, making people laugh and just just being a YouTuber. I'd been watching YouTube since it came out pretty much, and always thought that it would be an amazing job. And so, currently financially, in terms of goals, I could retire. I don't need to do this. um, you know, but I just love it, and so but with the financial aspect, there's sponsorships or stuff like that. I try and do that as much as it doesn't impact what I do and my enjoyment of it, because I don't enjoy doing sponsorships at all. But if there's something I can do which, um, doesn't impact more than, I don't know, like 5% of what I do, then I'll do it. But I mainly do what I do because I have a passion for it, and I love to do what I do.
I really respect that because coming from someone who's in the space with a large audience in this niche space, I know how much money you have to say no to again and again and again. At this point, for most people, it's seven figures. I know people where it's at eight figures and even higher, just because there's that much opportunity if you're willing to throw your audience under a bus right now, which unfortunately a lot of people are. What are the good opportunities out there for content creators?
Um, Good opportunities. I don't know. It's such a difficult thing to talk about. I think that, It's a very it's a very good space to be content creating in, but in terms of someone coming in with financial goals, "Okay, I'm gonna monetize it this way," I don't know, because I barely know what I'm doing. The only thing that I know how to do is to do what I enjoy, what makes me happy, which, I spend a lot of time on videos, but I enjoy the process. So I would say the best opportunity is whatever makes you happy, um and yeah, I don't know. I know it sounds
No,
cheesy, but
it's not like let me leverage my own personal endeavors, and you can perhaps use that to see if that would be what I mean. It's what I call a good way to do it. Only share platforms you use yourself and genuinely stand behind. Share them in a responsible way. For example, there's this blanket negativity towards leverage trading of any sorts, which rightly so, because it can lead to gambling, but no more so than just investing in random, volatile, low cap assets can. So the importance there comes from education. I'm okay to share a platform like that as long as I let my audience know that this is a tool for position sizing. This is a tool for managing risk, for mitigating counterparty risk, not a tool for gambling. In that sense, it becomes okay. To leverage another example, we work closely with 𝐏𝐸. They make fantastic crypto wallets. They're working with security experts from around the world, releases around mid-April, to put out like what they consider as a really good product. And they don't sponsor this podcast, so I'm not trying to shill them right now or anything. But the point is, I believe in these products. I stand behind these products. Therefore, I'm happy to share them with my audience. Everyone needs a place to buy. Everyone needs a place to store. So that doesn't impact, like you said, doing what I love, which is sharing this crypto message. Where would you stand on that?
yeah, I completely agree with that. If you can honestly look in the mirror and say that you tried to share a service that brings value to the end user, then absolutely, that is 100% the way to do it.
Fair enough. Then your goal for creating content is not monetization. You just make content because it's fun to do, which leads me to believe financial goals aren't really a thing for you anymore. You're just doing what you love, and if it happens to make you money, great.
Pretty much. Yeah, so I got lucky in 2017. I invested too much money, now that I think back on it, into some ICOs, as it goes. Some of them, I had one, I think. I mean, I don't mean to brag. It was, at one point in time, it was probably number 2 in terms of the most appreciating assets of, like, uh, pretty much all time. It was ridiculous. It was less than a couple cents, and it went to multiple dollars. So,
Can I
that
guess
was a
that
nice
asset,
day.
Cameron?
It was a token called Vibe, which I don't think is
Oh,
around anymore.
okay.
I don't know actually, but, um, yeah, it was something that, uh, yeah, changed my life, and like, the day that it happened, you know, because it happened pretty much overnight. It was the day it got listed to Binance. They have some weird market makers over there who just inflate stuff. Um, and I had a live stream with a couple other influencers the same day, and, um, yeah, but I wouldn't say it's completely there's no there's no goals to continue to monetize. You know, there is a couple sponsors that I work with who I do think provide a service like BlockFi. Just earning interest on your Bitcoin is a pretty it brings value to people, so I'm happy to do that. So I wouldn't say it's completely like, obviously, in order to do something as a living, it needs to pay. So I'm not trying to say I'm doing just for fun, but it's important that you do enjoy it, I think.
I can fully agree with that. So, before we move on from content creation, what would your top tips be for aspiring content creators who want to come into crypto? Because, I mean, it's fantastic. When more people come in, we get to push the message, adoption goes up. I want as many people to come in all sectors as possible.
Well, okay, so I'll talk about YouTube primarily because that's my main platform. Funnily enough, the main thing about YouTube is to scare audiences into feeling they have to watch right now, and it's exactly the same thing that journalism does. So big headlines, eye-catching, yeah, emergencies, it stirs these emotions in you. So that's the name of the game, and it's not that doesn't mean you have to do that, but just understand that that's what you're gonna be faced with in terms of, um yes, in terms of getting your voice out there, getting recommended, getting clicks. It is, it is a space where, yeah, you might need to move into that in order to get some eyes, and, yeah, it's awkward, it's complicated, and I don't like that world. You know, I think I was lucky enough to get in early enough where need to I didn't have so much competition, but, yeah, like, you've seen it, all those, screaming face, thumbnails, 100x coins, that type of stuff, Ethereum $50,000 predictions this year, that kinda thing. It's not good to build a loyal audience off of because those people are quite transient. They'll be in and out. But if you can get some eyes and then transition to helping them out, actually providing value. So yeah, if you had one video that went viral and then you changed completely, then it's much easier than being a nice, honest, calm YouTuber from the start.
What's that? What was that one video for you? Did you have that one video that kicked everything off?
I did a top 5 cryptocurrency video. And in my naivety, I thought that was bringing value. And, to be fair, monetarily, it did. It was, you know, it was mid to late 2017. There was not one of those coins that didn't, like, 10x from that position. But now they're all way, 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 you know, almost dead. I don't know. I haven't looked at the list, but it's not something I'd make now because I'm more mature. Um but yeah, that was the one that really started my channel. I got a few hundred views before on every video before that video, and after that, it was a few thousand
Do
on
you
every
invest
video.
in anything outside of Bitcoin right now?
Yeah, I've got a number of low cap DeFi stuff, which I'm hoping turns blue chip one day. And there's this whole underbelly of getting into private rounds for new coins, which I really don't like it. It's the whole, you do marketing and then you can be brought in, and I don't like it. But those those opportunities are there. So it's just I'm thinking about doing it, but I would be honest with my audience, like, okay, I got into the private rounds for this, or I'm being paid to say this or whatever. So then I think it's okay as long as you're upfront about it.
No, well, transparency really is the key with these sorts of things. I mean, the first sponsorship I ever did was with FEMAX for an educational trading tutorial. And the funny thing is, when you tell your audience, hey, they're sponsoring me, so I give you free stuff or free education, and this is what helps the platform run, it works fine. It's when you try and hide it from people, when you try and be sneaky, that it can really come back and bite you in the ass, or it just comes across as disingenuous. Well, Thank you for sharing that content creation journey. And I really enjoyed discussing with you kind of the underbelly, as you put it, of a lot of different segments of this. Now to transition over what you primarily make videos about, which is Bitcoin. Right now, going into 2021, what are the key narratives you're watching for Bitcoin?
Um, well, I think one of the major key narratives is maybe something that a lot of people don't like to think about or talk about, but it's the, well, umbrella term being the everything bubble, of which I think Bitcoin is very much a part of. So we're looking at literally everything bubbling to some degree, some of it really hard. And if you look at historical indicators that in general markets you would use to define what is a market top, where market's getting overheated. For example, levels of margin debt, the bond yield curve, so many indicators. We've blown past what should have been a crash. What happened in 2008? So we had a certain level of margin debt and bond yields. Um, in the 2000s dot-com bubble crash, we reached those types of levels in 2013, and we've just been keep on going. We never crashed. It's 2021 now, we just never crashed. Um, the reason there's many things people could point to why this is happening. I'd say the one of the fundamental ones is the velocity of money has been falling, I think, for the last 20-25 years, which has an impact on inflation. So we've seen worldwide governments lately print tremendous amounts. I think in the last year it was 20 trillion or so in the US, something crazy. Um, but we haven't seen inflation yet. Um, the reason that's happening is a lot of this money is going straight into bonds and it's not moving. So the money isn't actually circulating and isn't actually increasing the cost of goods and services. And what happens when um, the velocity of money continues to fall, people continue to park it in assets, well, things appreciate in value. So we've been in a housing bubble for ages, and it just keeps on going. And um, so I think Bitcoin's very much a part of this bubble now. I think there might have been a case for it being uncorrelated at some point, but I honestly, potentially since 2017, Bitcoin has had at least some correlation with the stock market. So as far as where's Bitcoin going, right? Because I think that's what the question's really getting at. What are the main narratives around Bitcoin? What we're expecting, where it might stop, where it would stop appreciating, where we would expect to crash. It's like I think it's very much correlated to the worldwide economy at this point, and Bitcoin will always be volatile. There'll always be opportunities to trade, but for those who like swing trade, who like buy and sell like once or twice a year, I think they'd be looking for a huge event that signals the bear market, and I think that would be correlated to the global economy, and when that is gonna happen, we don't know because we should like the all of our usual indicators for market tops in the general market don't really work anymore. All they do is point to the fact that we're in a bubble, but being in a bubble tells you or the size of it doesn't actually tell you anything about when it would pop.
So, Cameron, when you refer to a bubble, do you mean relative to, say, USD, which is currently global reserve currency? Is that what you mean as a bubble? Because a bubble means the value is inflated, but it has to have a benchmark, a relative to something. And is that the dollar?
Yeah. Um, yeah, there's a few different ways to measure it. You could say that stock prices relative to earnings is one, which are pretty high right now. You could point to margin debt levels being as a percentage based on levels of the S&P 500, which are at records. Basically, any way that you can sort of define an overheated market is pretty much what we're in.
So when that bubble pops, what are the assets that get hit with it? Because if everything gets hit at the same time, don't we get this like global deflation? Because if everyone's purchasing power reduces, it's fine. Where are the safe havens? How does one protect from this inevitable burst?
Well, I do wanna preface all of that I've said and say, I don't know if a bubble pop's coming. Like, at some point, you would imagine so, you can only keep it going, for so long. I feel like, the way it's handled in the US especially is just kick the monetary policy, uh, kick the problems with it down to the next election. And if you keep on doing that every single election, then eventually someone's gonna get a bad inherit a bad situation. Um, uh, I don't think Bitcoin is a hedge against a bubble pop, or as some others would put it, a hedge against inflation. I think it is in to some degree, but in terms of the way you compare it to gold, I don't think it's gonna be a safe haven asset in a bubble pop. I think it would go down just with every other, um, market investment opportunity, housing, stocks. I think gold would be your safest bet. That doesn't mean that's what I would wanna do personally. I would wanna hold Bitcoin in a bear market still because timing the market's very, very difficult, coming in and out at the right time. It's not really in my, set of skills, but, that's what I think.
So, do you have a substantial exposure to gold based off of this, or is it the philosophically? I thought philosophically you'd definitely be more Bitcoin exposed.
Yeah, because like I say, we don't know how long this bubble might continue for because it's basically unprecedented. The rate at which money is moving is hasn't been this low, um, since almost recorded history. There was one time it was as low, and that was 200 years ago. So it's I think within our lifetime, we've definitely seen a shift from, um, the way people approach money. It's very much about saving and investing now, more so than it's probably ever been in history. So it's this completely new territory, and I don't know when we're gonna suffer the consequences for being so over leveraged, having such relative earnings to prices. Could go for another 5, 10, 15, 20 years.
It really is a weird situation to be in because with every market, everyone knows at some point it has to go down. It can't just keep going up forever, but it's hard to pinpoint when, and everyone's always trying to predict it. But I guess the best way to view it, at least what I personally do, which our listeners might benefit from, is I view it in a very humble way. Come from a place of humility, assuming that you have no ability to guess it, and then you just have to assess your own personal risk tolerance because investing, trading, it's all personal. It's to do with you and your situation. Do you have people you need to take care of? Do you want to invest to buy a house in the future, to pay off a debt, to, I don't know, get your own private island, like you mentioned not too long ago? Whatever you want to do with it, have a clear goal and then assess your risk based off of that. And then the only guaranteed is a word I hate using, but guaranteed hedge would be diversification. If you're not sure what's going to go up or what's going to go down, diversify amongst a bunch of assets, and then you should, on average, just at least match the market in what it does overall across all your assets, so your purchasing power remains relatively safe compared to everyone else as well.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. Just as I guess adding on to that, if you need some if yeah, take profits in a bull market, always be asking yourself, can you afford to lose what you've got? And assess your risk. Absolutely. Those are really good tips.
Oh, thank you. And likewise, I really enjoy the depth at which you've clearly thought about these topics and are sharing with our listeners. Another topic which I really enjoyed listening to you talk about, and I think you explain it extremely well, is the grayscale effect. Can you explain to us what that is?
Yeah, so that was something that I learned about recently and really blew my mind to learn more about. So the US has almost no competition in the SEC reporting company investment vehicle for Bitcoin. That's a really long sentence, but if you as an investor want to have your papers right, you want above board that our accountant's fine with this. We want to invest in Bitcoin. We want to do it the best way on paper. Um, an SEC reporting company that can store your Bitcoin for you, there is almost no competition in the entire United States. And it will continue to be like that pretty much until there is a Bitcoin ETF approval in the United States, which the Securities Exchange Commission continually rejects. And it would put the retail investor on the same footing as accredited and institutional investors, but the SEC has to protect their corporate interests. I don't know. Anyway, so the SEC is in this position of power where they have a monopoly on buying and investing in Bitcoin in this particular way. So what they are able to do is, if you are part of a private group, a private investment group with Grayscale, you can deposit Bitcoin with them and receive shares for that Bitcoin, known as the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, or GBTC. These shares, because they're in such demand and there is only a limited Bitcoin supply, have a premium if you sell them on secondary markets. So Ameritrade and a couple other trading platforms, you can get these GBTC shares. On average, to buy them costs 38% more than it should than if you had bought Bitcoin directly. Sometimes it's been as high as 100%. Sometimes it comes down. I think now it's about 10%, but there's a premium. And so there's an arbitrage opportunity where the only people who are allowed is this private group to deposit Bitcoin that way, and they can get the shares 0 premium. So, uh, what was interesting was on the investment reports for Grayscale, which they used to publish in full detail, it actually showed that most of the way Grayscale raises funds is from, this private group who deposit Bitcoin, don't actually buy it. It was, 80%, and this is in 2019. So now it's probably more. They stopped reporting it, and you can kind of tell why. It's kind of shady. So what these institutions are able to do, and the really amazing thing is they don't even need to like Bitcoin in order to do it. They can borrow Bitcoin from places like Gemini or BlockFi or whatever other institutional grade will allow you to borrow Bitcoin at a decent, whatever, maybe if it's even high interest rate. Go to Grayscale, deposit it, get issued these shares, sell those shares on secondary markets, pocket the difference, pay off their loan, boom. They're just taking advantage of their situation to do that, and it's the retail investors, the smaller companies, even smaller institutions who are the ones who are paying this premium. But the good thing about it is it's created a one-way system for Bitcoin. It goes in and it does not come out. When these institutions want to profit, they do so immediately. They're selling, they're getting cash, and, the the kinda awful thing is, for the retail community that bought these shares at a premium, they have to wait and to sell to even break even. If you spent 40% more, you have to wait for a 40% rally to break even. Um, but it's a continuous cycle. Grayscale buys Bitcoin, Bitcoin goes up in value, therefore, there's more demand for these shares. Once there's more demand for those shares, Grayscale buy more Bitcoin. Um, Peter Schiff made a comment about it, and I can't believe I might actually agree with a tweet he ever made about Bitcoin. Makes my skin crawl. But he talked about that being a cycle, and he also suspects that Grayscale are paying for Bitcoin articles, Bitcoin placements on news channels and stuff like that to get the word out. I don't know if that's what they're doing. I It's a little bit too conspiracy theory for me, but it wouldn't surprise me. But that's the Grayscale effect, and it's been one of the primary drivers of this entire rally, and that's how they got 3% of the entire supply, or like 600,000 Bitcoin.
That's absolutely mind blowing to think about, especially like the Peter Schiff mention over there. Finally agreeing with something he says. It's
That's the truly mind-blowing thing.
Well, you know what? I actually like Peter Schiff and what you just said. It all comes together in this macro view I have of the entire space. That to some degree, every single person is just an actor. They're all just playing a role. They're playing a role, and that role benefits them in some way. When you go on social media, you're just painting an image of yourself, whatever you want that to be. I have no doubt in my mind that Peter Schiff is playing a marketing role. He is the anti-Bitcoin guy. Anyone who's anti-Bitcoin can rally towards his flag and enjoy it. And further to that, that means you just have to take everything you see with a grain of salt. Like take Michael Saylor, for example. Not just leveraging him as a random example. This can be any famous person who's bought Bitcoin. How do you know they don't take out leverage shorts to hedge everything they buy, and it's all just a marketing play on a smaller bag, or you just have no idea what's going on over there. So it's just really, I just take nothing I see at face level in this space or anything on the media.
Yeah, I think that's very wise. I think it can be a little bit, um, what's the word? Like, depressing when you think about it. Everything everyone does or says is motivated by money to some degree, but it's so true. Um, I was thinking about something Michael Saylor said recently. He says, "I don't see Bitcoin as a currency, I see it as a digital gold," and I thought, um, you know personally, I think Bitcoin being a currency is really, really important. In fact, it underpins the whole store of value thing. It's not that as special as just a store of value. What really makes it special is it can be both. But anyway, why was he saying that? Does he truly believe that? And I thought to myself, maybe he doesn't. But the reason he's saying it is because he's a corporate speaker. He's trying to get the attention of all these corporations worldwide to pay attention to Bitcoin, why they should, and by saying it's not gonna replace the dollar, it's not gonna change commerce, he's saying things that are crazy ideas to some. They think it's fantastical thinking, that's just a fairy dream. He might believe it, but he'll say he doesn't, and just talk about the store of value aspect because that's very hard to argue with. It's been a really good store volatile, yes, but very good store of value. So, he's basically creating an impenetrable defense, and it works really well. So, yeah, absolutely. People are people say what they say. Hopefully, they're not too motivated by money, but there's usually some aspect of it, and I bet Peter Schiff is the same.
Uh, I don't mind if someone's motivated by money, like if that's the game you want to play, as long as you're not hurting people. That's the key part. Like anything you do, make sure you're having a net positive effect from it. And I really have no problem with that. And there are loads of exceptions to that that definitely are having a net negative effect. But yeah, it's really all actors playing different roles. Like if you're a negative Bitcoin person like Peter Schiff or anyone else, you will get invited to conferences, paid quite a lot of money to speak negatively about it, and that becomes a career for you. Just be the Bitcoin villain. And then you bring the corporations into the picture. And this is where it gets crazy right now and makes me really agree with you that yes, we're in a bubble, but bubbles can make shit tons of money and go on for absolutely ages. So it doesn't mean anything to say we're in a bubble. But the thing is, right now, you can invest your company's assets, just any part of your balance sheet, into Bitcoin. You will get a huge amount of media attention. You will probably help pump the price of Bitcoin, so your investment immediately goes up, and you get a huge religious community fall in love with you without having to associate with a religion. So we've created a pretty unsustainable dynamic in a lot of ways right now.
Hmm. Okay, unsustainable how? Because what you just described sounded like a win-win-win situation to me.
It's unsustainable because this is the .com bubble. This is anyone who puts .com at the end of their company name and the company value goes up. It's a win for Bitcoin. It's a loss for every single company with value inflating because they're buying X amount of Bitcoin.
Well, I agree with you as long as it's not yeah, I agree with you with everything, ex like lower tier companies never heard of, dying businesses, as soon as they're doing it, yes. If we're talking about Apple, though, it would be so big. I mean, I talked about it recently, but they just have this giant ecosystem where they could put wallets in their phones. They sell like 200 million a year of those. They've got a car coming out. They've got computers. They could create a new Binance and it be 2-3 times more popular than Binance overnight. They could be such a powerful force in crypto so quickly. Um, it just makes you wonder though if they would want to prefer their own Apple coin or whatever. But
That's exactly what I was about to jump in with. I mean, I've avoided them for so long, but Clubhouse recently made me go buy an iPhone. So now I've got an iPhone as well, and I mean, they've got their own charges. They make it very difficult to shift ecosystem. I don't see a world where Apple don't somehow Appleize whatever cryptocurrency comes into their ecosystem. Why would they share their audience or tight following that can't move, very inflexible following with something that's flexible? I don't see any incentive for them to do that.
yeah, it's pretty much doing a deal with the devil. I don't know if I'd still want to sign on the dotted line though. I don't know. Yeah, they're huge though. They've got 200 billion in just cash. You know, they have so much more than Tesla. Um, they okay, if we're getting into like conspiratorial territory here, they sold off 15 billion this week. Yeah, just this week of bonds. So they're coming out of long-term positions. What for? They didn't say. Are they
Hopefully
they're
to
gonna buy Bitcoin? I don't know.
Yeah,
Uh,
hopefully the push of the publicity is enough for them to go into it. Not that they need publicity, but neither did Tesla, and that's paying off quite nicely for them for sure. Um,
oh, yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, I so the stock did really well based on the Bitcoin acquisition news for, like, a day, but then some new competitor in the electric vehicle market came, news broke of them, and then the stock started to come down. So it looks like it was just, an unsustained pump. But if that didn't happen, then we might have continued going up. And I think yeah, it was like a 2% jump for Tesla on the Bitcoin news, which was way more in theoretical value than what they had bought or the amount of money that they had made from buying because they bought Bitcoin at some point in January. So I made profit off of that, but they actually made really good profit. I think someone was saying they made more than they make from car sales in 6 months.
yeah, I definitely saw that tweet. That was very funny that they made more than they have from car sales
Yeah,
ever on
doing
buying
nothing.
Bitcoin. But hey, it's the type of market, and really, this is one of the most thriving, exciting industries to be in right now. I think it's quite awesome. Like, despite the underbellies and the negativities that go on in it, overall, we're shifting in a really positive direction, a direction of transparency, a direction of decentralization, where power shifts to the people as much as possible. Obviously, there's some corruption anywhere you look, and areas of inequality, but generally, I'd say a much superior system. Cameron, thank you so much for your time. This has been a delightful episode and a great conversation. Before we wrap things up, is there anything you'd like to leave our listeners with? That can be a plug, though, knowing you so far, I don't think that's going to be what we get from you. That could just be a message you think would really benefit our traders, investors, and entrepreneurs listening, or just a goodbye.
Um, okay. If I was to think of a potentially helpful message, because I would like to say something. So, a lot of people, actually, one of my family members, talking about quitting their jobs to pursue trading full time because they're doing very well for themselves right now, and I think that's awesome. I think that's great, and all power to people that want to do that. Who I've been there. I quit my 9 to 5 to pursue crypto full time. As long as you know it's a bull market and absolutely everyone is a genius in a bull market and you cannot go wrong. It's shooting fish in a barrel right now. It doesn't last forever. But from the sounds of it, your audience is going to know this. I'm pretty sure you take care of them pretty well. So that was a redundant message, but I've had a lot of fun talking with you. I appreciate the invitation. And yeah, that's it from me.
Cameron, that is not a redundant message. I think, and you probably know this as well as someone who takes care of that audience. Our job is not to just increase, like constantly deliver loads of different messages that are increasingly more niche and complex. It's to deliver the same timeless, useful information again and again in as many different ways as possible until it sinks in and starts to add value to people's lives. That's the way I view it. I think you're awesome. Thank you so much for your time. Meditators, that's all for this episode of the Market Meditations podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you again next time. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Market Meditations podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like us to continue bringing you fascinating people from across the world, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever else you like to listen to these podcasts, and share the episode with a friend. If you have feedback or an idea for a potential guest, reach out to me on Twitter at 𝐉𝐸ℎ, and do not forget we write a newsletter covering all important topics in crypto and traditional markets. We send it out 3 times a week, the Market Meditations newsletter. You also get early access to these episodes, and you get transcripts and extra notes as well, so make sure to subscribe there as well.